Disclaimer: this video was written and recorded prior to the announcement of the Israel-Hamas ceasefire deal on Wednesday, the 15th of January 2025. As such, the content reflects the context and circumstances at the time of its creation and may not account for subsequent developments. I encourage viewers to stay informed about the latest updates on this evolving situation.
Initially, this video was supposed to address the deluded claim made by the Israeli government and external supporters of the apartheid state that there is no genocide happening in Gaza, but with various rulings, arrest warrants issued, and damning reports published by liberal establishment charities, the question of genocide in Gaza isn't even a moot point anymore. It's now just a case of how much more everyone is willing to watch. I would have preferred to not have watched a child burning to death in a hospital bed, but I guess this is the unsacred timeline. So instead, I think it would be an opportunity to highlight the genocides carried out by Israel's biggest allies and why this support appears to be unwavering. The Genocide Convention tells us that genocide means any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial or religious group. As such, A. Killing members of the group. B. Causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group. C. Deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. D. Imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. E. Forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. I think it's important to give you this definition in its entirety. With that being said, genocide is hard to prove without explicit intent. But lucky for us, perpetrators of genocide often show their intent in flashing neon lights, and Israel is no exception.
If you gave me a button to just erase Gaza, every single living being in Gaza would no longer be living tomorrow, I would press it in a second.
Let's not beat about the bush. That is a genocidal comment that the security minister has made. It is calling for the memory of Amalek to be blotted out.
Five Palestine. Hi. Five Palestine, baby. Yeah, very good.
You five Palestinian babies?
Yeah.
When top guys in the Israeli government start talking about Amalek from the Bible and cutting off food and energy, the intention is pretty open and shut. It's also important to highlight that genocide is not judged by the numbers killed, but the intentions and the actions carried out. I also believe that genocide should not have any statutes of limitations like murder. That's why this video will include cases from across history where the evidence is irrefutable. Anyway, more learned and articulate people than me can be found talking about why Israel is committing genocide in better ways than I could ever imagine. And Francesca Albanese is a fantastic person to start with.
And then there have been many scholars from the legal field, many historians, including Israeli historians, denouncing what Israel was doing as genocide.
Some might see Germany as Bonnie to Israel's Clyde. And in all honesty, Germany has been acting very bitchy lately to anyone that would even suggest Israel has done anything wrong. German police have mollywopped any pro-Palestinian protesters, even the Jewish ones. Greta Thunberg has been arrested on several occasions. I bet the establishment misses the days when Greta was talking about abstract things like CO2 levels.
And Israel.
The German state has also said that you cannot become a citizen without pledging allegiance to Israel, something I have never seen in the history of countries. The world has gone batshit crazy. Of course, this misguided protection of the apartheid state by Germany stems from their actions during World War II, understandably, and the Holocaust was used as the foundation for the Genocide Convention. But Germany's history was soaked in blood way before the Second World War. Namibia can attest to the brutality of German aggression. 2 separate ethnicities were targeted, with over 100,000 people slaughtered. Germany even recognizes these actions, but nobody cares because the victims were darker than a poorly tanned Donald Trump. France has a unique va-va-voom when it comes to their history of being colonial masters, instigating the 1947 Casablanca massacre, but outsourcing it to Senegalese people, covering up the erasure of at least 100 Algerians in the heart of Paris, and actually allowing the Rwanda genocide to happen. I know Macron was gesturing about stopping arms sales to Israel, but he was merely tap dancing for the camera. Britain now has a prime minister that refers to Israel as she.
But I don't want to step away from the sort of core principles that Israel has a right to defend herself.
People say it's because Keir wants to fuck Israel, but I believe it is a deep-rooted misogyny where only real men can protect women, and all women are helpless, just like Israel somehow. Britain collects genocides like Thanos collecting the Infinity Stones. It's a burden only Britain can carry. If they're not wiping out indigenous people in Australia, the Mau Mau in Kenya had to be crushed for daring to question colonial rule. 3 things you should never do: ask a man his salary, ask a woman her age, or ask Winston Churchill what he thought of non-white people. The list of good things Winston Churchill had to say about Indian people could fit on the back of a British stamp. Britain was responsible for killing over 160 million Indian people in 40 years, and Churchill policies were directly linked to 3 million Bengal people dying in a famine. North America was an environment where ethnic cleansing and genocide was perfected. I know it's easy to leave Canada and United States responsible, but I feel that it was a real team effort to eliminate First Nation peoples in those lands. All colonial European countries assembled like the Avengers to conquer what we now know as North America. Gold stars for everybody. It's important to acknowledge the efforts made by global South countries against the genocide being committed by Israel. Whether it's South Africa bringing that case to the ICJ, or Yemen implementing a blockade, it's amazing to see nations with less fighting to save another nation of people with nothing. I guess it's also fair to mention these shitbag countries that have also stopped selling arms to Israel. Japan left a trail of bodies throughout Southeast Asia, and Belgium turned the Congo into a slaughterhouse. If these nations are saying you are doing too much, I think you might be doing too much. I suspect these countries only stopped the arms sales to uphold the illusion of an international rule-based system. But what they fail to understand is that Israel has shattered that illusion forever. If Israel falls, it will be a domino effect that leads to the whole system collapsing. We are often told that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, which is a euphemism for saying it is the only white country surrounded by brown savages. Not an ideal situation when you can't stop attacking your neighbours. I imagine that Western countries saw apartheid South Africa as a democracy cornered by black barbarians. The ICJ and the ICC were tools used against African and Eastern European countries. That was the original design and purpose. We were told as much.
And of course I've had some elected leaders speak to me and be very blunt. This court is built for Africa and for thugs like Putin, was what one senior leader told me.
Why do you think the first official genocide recorded after World War II was in Rwanda, when the Mau Mau uprising genocide happened in the 1950s and the 1960s? These international tools of justice were used against Africans because they dared to challenge imperialism, and Eastern European countries for the crime of trying communism. But we are in uncharted waters because Israel is seen and treated as a Western country, which makes this very intriguing. Personally, I do believe that Israel will be charged with committing genocide against the Palestinian people. Once this happens, global South countries will be emboldened to sock Western countries in the mouth some more. And with the rise of BRICS, economic parity is on the horizon for nations that have so often been exploited, plundered, and marginalized. This spells danger and even extinction for global North countries who have become accustomed to poorer countries not protecting their resources, which are so heavily relied on by people in their imperial core. So this was a shorter video than usual, but I didn't think it would be appropriate for me to set out a case for genocide when so many experts would do a much better job than me. With that being said, I don't think it's hyperbole to say Israel is committing genocide. We have evidence of intent and actions in the form of videos released by the Israelis themselves. It's like nobody in that nation has ever watched an episode of How to Get Away with Murder. Currently, the West has to protect their interests of land and resources in the Middle East. That's why weapons are still being sent, with Palestinians paying the high price for Western countries to keep a grip on their dominance of the world. And in the most shocking display of hubris and arrogance not seen in a hot minute, Donald J. Trump decided to say the quiet part out loud, which amounted to him announcing his intention to build hotels on the graves of Palestinian children. It's also worth mentioning that all of this would be more shocking if Joe Biden hadn't greenlit a genocide. But I guess it's also something that someone in that administration thought it would be a good idea to at least walk back some of the madness. Keep pressurizing your elected politicians, keep protesting public events, and keep boycotting brands linked to Israel's genocide and apartheid rule over the Palestinian people.